Hello, NG Houston. Let me take off Zach's screen share. Okay, we are getting started late tonight, and that's my fault because I was home late, so I have no hair and makeup. You're just going to have to deal with it, but you don't care about my hair and makeup. You care about Reactive Forms. So that's really what's important tonight. I'm really excited about the show, but before we get into our guest, I want to introduce my wonderful co-host, Bjorn, who you guys, it's getting to be a familiar face. And Bjorn, you have the Winter Wonderland background going on. I want to be like you. I think you're very cool.
We've talked about this before.
Have to help me get set up.
Yeah, we've talked about it before.
Yeah, we did. You helped me, and then I almost got there, and then it all went terribly wrong, and it was a mess.
I just want to say hi, Houston, and it's very wintry over here in the Netherlands, so that's why I adjusted the theme for tonight. Hope you'd appreciate it. Welcome.
It's very cool. It's very cool. If only we could be as cool as you. But we can be, well, at least we're cool. We have you in our presence. Speaking of cool, we have a brand new panelist. You guys be nice to him. His name is Dennis, and we met him last week at NGBE. Dennis, will you say hello to everybody?
Hello, everybody.
Thank you so much, and welcome to NG Houston.
Thank you.
Welcome indeed. Welcome indeed.
And then we have our bonus panelist, who is a friend of the guest, who is, I believe, Isaac Mann, here to heckle our guest.
Yeah, that's my job.
You, Isaac, for the
Yep.
gallery.
Professional heckler.
Always good to have you on the show. And last but not least, our guest of honor tonight, Zach DeRose.
Hey.
How the hell are you, Zach?
Doing pretty well. So Isaac and I have actually been doing code jams on Wednesday mornings, about 2 hours, 1 hour before this time slot. Yeah. So we actually took a break from our code jam this week so we could show some cool stuff on Reactive Forms.
What awesome. Is the code jam like online where we could all join your code jam, or is this like just a Zach and Isaac thing?
Well, it's been a Zach and Isaac thing, but I don't think it has to be exclusive. We're just kind of code jamming, presenting on some topic for about 30 minutes once a week. We went through like X state. That was a fun little thing to do because Isaac presented on that not long ago, and I was really interested in it. Anything with state management, I'm super interested in.
It's a YouTube live stream thing.
Are working on Narwhal, we're super interested too. So anytime, if you're just doing something cool and you want to come and show us on NG Houston, you guys are always welcome here.
Awesome.
So speaking of showing us something cool, you want to share? I took off your screen share because I just wanted to introduce everybody and say hello. And then you want to turn your screen share. I'll just add it back in.
Yeah.
And what do you got for us tonight?
So we're going to talk about reactive forms. I'd like to talk about mainly composing reactive forms, how best to do that. It's something I've found from my experience when you get into the situation where you're taking forms, you're trying to combine them or compose from them, or like trying to manage inputs and outputs, things can get really hairy really quick. So I'd like to talk in this presentation just about, some tips for helping with that composition while keeping code clean.
Did you make a course about that? I think you started. Yeah. We're looking at your random slide, I think, in the middle of your slide, but you actually have a course that you worked on for Narwhal.
Right. So the slides we're going to show in just a second here are going to be, these are from the course lectures, and we'll also be doing later, after we get through the slides, live coding session that's stolen from one of the lessons from the course. So you're getting a little bit of a free preview here. I think Amanda's been posting on Twitter links to that course if you're interested. I think we're running like a 50% off sale right now.
Yeah,
so
this is why I've been so nice to Narwhal for so long, because we make friends with Amanda and we make friends with all of you guys, and you come on and teach us cool stuff for free, and I love it. But so you're gonna give us a little sneak preview, and then if they want more of this awesome content, then they'll go to the course. But you're gonna have to show us.
Today you only get a taste, so Go get the whole thing.
I love it. I love it.
But yeah, so jumping into the slide. So this is a slide that I use a diagram like this a lot in the course to just talk about the mental model of what reactive forms are. So just starting
this
from
is
square
not a
one.
random slide. This is like where you're starting from.
This is where I'm starting from. This is the
All
starting
right.
point. So
Okay.
so we have our mental model of our component, our Angular component here. We have our component class on the right hand side. Think of it as like your TypeScript file, and then your HTML template on the left hand, which is going to be your HTML template. So if we think about what it takes to sort of use reactive forms in Angular, we're using this one-way binding via form controls and directives and all this stuff. So that's what this diagram talks about. So inside of our component class here, we create a control. That's this little green dude over here. And then we have inside of our template form element or some component that we want to bind this control to. And to do that, we use a directive, usually form control or form group or form array. And then we attach this control to that directive, passing it in. And this isn't a perfect representation of what's going on here, but the way I like to think about it is the control value accessor is what allows that link to exist. So by putting this control object, the green object, into our directive, we now have a way to easily just interact with that form control, calling stuff on the API like SetValue or listening to the value changes observable it exposes. And we can just sort of interact with everything in that way, right?
Can I ask for clarification real quick?
Yeah.
Are we talking specifically forms module or reactive forms module here in this mental model?
So I deal almost exclusively with reactive forms. I believe that implementing the control value accessor will actually work for both template-driven forms and reactive forms.
Okay.
But since I do things almost exclusively with reactive forms, I'm not sure if this will work with template forms. I guess that's.
Well,
I think it will.
I'm glad we clarified it then, because from just the slide I couldn't gather. So
sure. So this what we have on screen here. This is reactive forms.
Roger, got it.
Right.
Yeah.
If you were using template-driven forms, it would look a little bit different. You'd kind of have this this input, and rather than having on the right-hand side a control, you just have a class property, and you'd pass that class property into the value of the HTML template over here. So instead of using form control or form group or form array, you just use, I think, value, right? So
it seems like what you're doing here is with reactive forms, you're taking some of the logic that would be in the template and pulling it out into the component class. And that arrow there is letting you like do the logic of the component class and have that affect the template on the other side.
Right. So whereas the template-driven forms are kind of this two-way binding, because you would pass in an input to the value, and then you'd listen to a value changes output, and that would you'd see an arrow going the other way back into your component class. That's kind of like the two-way binding of the template-driven forms. So this is kind of problematic if you start doing intensive things with it. So this kind of one-way binding is a more I think it's a better way of doing things. It's more reactive. So yeah, let me skip ahead to the next slide I wanted to show here, so we can just see sort of how this looks in code. So here we have the diagram as we saw it before. We're going to kind of take away these abstract notions and replace it with little snippets of code, right? So here we have our component class, and we see there's some control there. And then in our template, we have this input, text input. What we're going to do is we're going to use the form control directive there to just pass that control property over. And so that's kind of trying to reinforce and build upon that mental model. Just this is concretely what we're doing here, right? So let's jump into sort of this live share thing, and let's see. So I've just spun up a NX workspace. So this is just the workspace you get if you run the create NX workspace script. And we are going to hurry up and import the forms module and the reactive forms module. And let me do that real quick. I don't know why my autocomplete's not working, but it's not. Angular forms.
If you're gonna do
Your
fully
autocomplete's
live
not
coding,
working because it's because you're on YouTube. You're live
yeah,
streaming.
exactly. Yeah,
So
if you
something
wanna,
that has to go wrong when you live stream.
yeah, this is your live coding, and there's like this curse on live coding on the presentation that everything breaks.
Oh yeah.
So if you're gonna be live coding a lot, it might be a good idea to Command Shift P, I guess, and reload the window right now, so it will work. Because that's gonna hurt you.
Oh, he doesn't even need the autocomplete. He's too cool for school.
I understand.
Well,
But I want to make him
I don't want
comfortable,
y'all to struggle bus with me through this. So let's
Well,
see.
we'll be here. We'll be here if you
We
need support.
believe in you, Zach.
Great, I appreciate that. So over here we see this is kind of the boilerplate NX welcome screen you get if you just create a base app. So let's go in there and let's cut out some of the template. Let's throw in here. We're just going to do what we showed in that slide, right? So we're going to say here's a new form control. We'll just pass in an empty string for now. And then inside of our app component, let's make an input. This type is text. And we'll use the form control directive to bind our control onto this element. All right, and let's see. We have a form. We have a control.
Can you zoom in?
Make that a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Cool. And so just to see how this is working, I'm going to put a pre element down here, and let's do control dot value. We'll pipe this to JSON. So what I'm doing here is just so we can see for purposes of streaming here, what's the value on the control. I don't think I needed to pipe it to JSON, but we'll see now as I'm typing in here, the value is being updated inside of our control. So this is kind of how we can. This already is a little bit reactive, right? We're not really doing anything with like observables yet, but we already see as soon as I'm typing, the this pre-element is getting populated with the value that I've entered into the form. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
So the question now, getting into like composition, is how do we take this where we have a small piece like this? This is just a text input. We want to build something bigger and meaningful. So the example I'd like to do is actually a family tree, which is I originally got this idea. I was tweeting around on Twitter. And I was actually asking for interesting ideas for stuff to add into the forms course. And someone requested like a recursive tree structure. So I thought that was a really cool idea. So I went to see, is this doable? It sounded like it would be really difficult, but it actually turned out to be pretty easy if you understand how the control value accessor works and how that sort of plays with the Forms API. So I'd like to go ahead and make a new component here. So I'm using this is the Angular console VS Code plugin. It's really cool. You should check it out if you're not using it. It's got a lot of cool new toys to it. So what we're going to call generate to make a new component. And we're just going to call this, let's call it family tree. And we'll add the name of our project. I think that's all we really need to do. Let's hit run. See if that will make it for us. Cool. So now we sort of have our family tree component, and let's see what the selector we made for this was. So we're going to grab this name, and I'm just going to throw this into our app template here, so we can see this right below our input. All right, and let's make sure that worked. Family tree works. Perfect.
Awesome.
So we've made a component. We did it.
Wow.
We did it.
We never doubted you.
Generated it on the spot. Awesome.
Yeah. And it's all thanks to NX and our cool tools like Angular console. So what I'm going to actually do here. So we have sort of the boilerplate component. I'm actually going to make a new file here. I'm going to call it family tree. I'm just going to make a .utils.ts. Because the way I like to handle a lot of these problems or interesting things is I like to code to interfaces. And with TypeScript, you can take that very, very literally. So I'm going to create a new interface here. I'm going to call it family tree. And so if I'm thinking about this in sort of a data structure, this is almost like a node. So for my node, the pieces I really care about, I want to have a name. So we're going to have a name that's just some string. We're going to have
for a person in the family tree.
Yeah. So this was represent one person in the family tree, and we're not going to worry about couples. I guess we're just going to assume one ancestor. So we'll say there's this one person, they have a name and they have an age. I don't know why I care about age, but I do. and then they have some children, right? So we're going to have this children property. And this is actually going to be a little bit recursive in itself, because we're going to say this is actually a family tree array, right? So if I have, if I'm using me, and let's do that actually. Let's use the Simpsons. We just got Disney Plus at home, and we've been watching a lot of Simpsons. So that seems like a good way to do that. So we'll say Simpsons family tree is a family tree, and we'll say name. Let's go with I think the grandfather's called Abe Simpson. Do you all have Simpsons in Germany and Holland?
Belgium?
No, but I grew
We
up
do
with
have.
The Simpsons.
You
I
do?
know the Simpsons, but I didn't know they were on Disney Plus.
Yeah, they've got every single episode. Where my family's already made it through to season 6, I think.
Disney owns the whole world, so
Yeah.
anything you can think of is there.
Right. So we have Abe Simpson here, and he has a child whose name is Homer. I'll just leave his first name for now. I don't really know how old they are. I'm just going to guess he's 35. That sounds good.
I think he's a little older.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter at all.
Could be. Then he has, we'll put Bart. And
I think
Bart,
Homer gets younger as the rest of us get older.
Maybe.
it feels that way. Bart's he's in like 4th grade. That's like 9, right? He doesn't have any children, so he's just going to have an empty array. And then let's just grab this so we can copy and paste it, because we need to add Maggie now. And
Just 1 or 2.
Oh wait, Meg is the youngest.
Yeah,
one.
where's Lisa?
Meg's-
Yeah,
There's Lisa. I forgot Lisa.
And isn't Lisa the oldest?
I
Zach,
think
you can't forget Lisa Simpson.
Lisa is definitely younger than Bart. I know that
She's
because
like the keystone of the whole series.
yeah. No,
There
I
we
love
go.
Lisa. Lisa's the voice of reason. She plays the mean sax. So you'll notice as I was kind of making this component, or not this component, this variable, because I typed it as a family tree, I was getting these red squigglies all throughout. Whenever I was in violation of this sort of contract with the interface, which is really nice. Like that's really cool that you can have that, because now I'm very confident that my Simpsons family tree is an actual tree. So let's collapse this down. I think we'll use that later, this family tree that we've built here, so we can actually populate our form. But so what I want to do next is I want to create a factory function for creating two things, two factory functions actually. One for creating a control that's going to hold one object that matches this interface. And we're going to make another one that's a factory function for creating a form group that holds a similar structure. So we'll do that. Let's start with the simpler one, which is just creating the control. So I'm going to say export constant create family tree control. And this is going to be, we'll have some, we'll call this FT, which is a family tree. And the function here is going to return a form control.
Is that a generic form control? Is generic?
I think I do have to add that in here.
Oh, you just need to import it. Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that didn't work, but it's okay. We can make do. Let me go ahead and bring in form group, since I know we'll need that later.
It'll be grayed out, and when you save, it'll get deleted, right?
Oh yeah. I just won't save. It'll be fine. Okay, so we have some family tree that's getting passed in, and we want to create a form control. So this is pretty easy. We just do a new form control, pass in FT. Then now we'll create the create family tree form group. So this is a little bit more interesting. We are going to take, in this situation, oh, let me see.
So a form group is basically a collection of controls. Is that the idea?
Yeah. So this is something we address in the course, just talking about all the different models. But you have your control, which is kind of like in JavaScript. I make the analogy of a primitive. Or maybe not a primitive, but just like a reference. So it can hold a string, it can hold a number, it can also hold an object if you want it.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so a form group is actually, you'll see here in the line above, we took a form control, we just passed in a single variable. In a form group, when we create it, we're going to pass in an object. It's almost like a map. You can think of it that way, where we map a name to a abstract control, and that control could itself be just a form control, or it could be another form group, or it could be a form array. So there's all these things nesting down and down, and so a group is kind of like an object, if you want to think of it that way, or an object reference, and then a form array, which we'll also see because we'll have to do that for our children here. It's just an array of controls, which can themselves be other arrays, or other groups, or just controls.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So we'll have a similar situation here. So we want some family tree, and we want this factory function to return a form group, which is now in use, and I can finally save. And we'll make a new form group.
Space.
Thank you. And this form group is going to look like so. So we're going to pass in an object. I wish, let me zoom out just a little bit so we can get this all on one screen. Can you all still see that all right?
Yeah, it's very readable.
Yeah,
that's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we'll make a new form group here. And so we want to kind of mimic the interface up top. So we're going to say name here, but instead of name being a string, it's actually going to be a form control. So kind of that analogy with the primitives comes in. So, and we're going to pass in the name
That's cool.
from the family group. And then we're going to say age is a new form control from the family tree.age. And then finally, children. This is going to get a little tricky.
Yeah, now it's going to get cool.
Yeah, so now we're going to do a form array here. And what we're actually going to do, we're going to take the children array. So remember, this is now a array of family trees. And what we're going to do is we're going to map that so we can take this child. So this child right now is just a string.
It's a family tree.
It's a family tree. It's a family tree. But you'll notice, because this is a family tree, the interface we made for creating our family tree control is right here. So what we'll do is we'll just call that factory function and pass in the child. Right. So let's just take a moment to let that sink in, because this is actually all we have to do.
Another parentheses on the end of line 42.
Yeah,
closing.
exactly. Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
Professional heckler saving the day.
Thank you, professional hecklers. So just to think about what's happening here, and you have to think a little bit recursively. So it's a little bit of a mind trick. But we have a new form array. Remember, a form array can have a list of any kind of form, be it a group or another array or whatnot. So what we're doing is, inside of this array, for each child that exists on the parent, we're going to create another branch down below. So in our situation here where we have Abe is going to instantiate a control for his name, a control for his age, and then an array for his children. And Homer is his only child in this thing, so he'll just add a sort of a Homer node here. And as soon as we call that factory function to create a new group underneath him, Homer is going to go and start instantiating himself. So he'll do the same thing as Abe did.
I think you're calling a different function.
Yeah,
in your.
that's what I was thinking.
So you're calling create family tree control. So that'll make Homer
one
be
control. Yeah.
All inside one control. So
yes.
I think you want to call the tree form group again.
No, or in the family tree control, you need to call this function.
Yeah. Either way.
Yeah. Either like that. Yeah. But let's not bring him off from his presentation yet, because he might have a plan here. Yeah. But I'm not following as well, Isaac. I'm at the same crossroads where I don't understand where it's going now.
Okay.
We're a little worried, Isaac, Zach, but we're gonna go with you. We're trusting you.
We have so much confidence in you. We've explained our worries, and we assume you will fix everything.
I assume I will too. We'll see. This is worrisome. This is what I have in my little cheat sheet over here as being the thing that's working right now. So we'll
this
just
looks exactly like a recursive function I accidentally wrote one time.
Oh yeah. Cool.
Don't worry about it, Zach. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what this looks like.
I assume I'll be fine. Well, let's bring this in. So we want to. So we've kind of let's assume this works for now. So put aside your doubts, and we'll see if it doesn't. But we have now. It's almost like this little API we've built inside of this utils file, right? So we have our interface for family tree. We have a factory function for creating a control, factory function for creating a group. And it's kind of, this is kind of the building blocks we're going to want to use inside of our component. So let's jump over to our component real quick. We'll and there's some things we'll have to do to have this implement the control value accessor. But before we do that, let's think about how we might do this without using the control value accessor. So if this was just a normal Angular component, let's say we use like an input here to say here's some family tree, which is a family tree. I don't want
you've now angered the demo gods.
I've angered them so bad.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. I've been having this problem off stream too recently.
No, this is classic live presentation problems.
Yeah. So we'd have this family tree. So we'd expect to like have some thing that consumes this component to pass in a family tree. And then we'd probably have some output here that maybe we'd call it changes or something like that, which might be an observable of a family tree or an event emitter, something like that. And we'd probably want to care about some things like errors and stuff like that as well. But let's just think about input and output for now. The interesting thing about the control value accessor is that there's really two main functions to the control value accessor, which is write value and register on changes, I believe. And if we think about the input and the output, those two methods kind of map very closely to how the input and the output property would work. It's a little bit different, and we'll see that as we implement it here. But if that might be a helpful analogy for someone who is used to Angular but isn't necessarily used to doing stuff with the control value accessor before. So the first thing we'll have to do to implement the control value accessor, we'll have to add a provider. So I think it's provide, yeah. ng, it's not going to give me it. Let's see if I remember this right. Grab that, and this should be, so this is just a token that's provided from Angular Forms. That's not right.
Take off the ng, I think, maybe?
Yeah, I'd say.
Is that it?
Nope.
Oh, maybe that's because... No.
Give me a sec. I got you.
Sure. Thank you.
It says it has lowercase there. Camel case control value accessor.
Yeah, it's without the underscores.
I think that's not the token I'm looking for. That's
you're looking for a token, right?
Yeah.
So let's look for a token then.
Let's see. I think I had this.
Yeah, you were right with the ng prefix.
Okay. Is it just ng value?
ng value accessor. Yeah, it's ng value accessor.
There
it is. Now it's helping you. See it? Just when you find it out, it helps you.
Yeah, it's mocking me now.
Yeah, a little bit.
So we want to provide this token, and we're going to use existing. We're just going to pass in the name of our component here. And then we're going to set multi to true, because we could potentially have multiple of these. In fact, we will have multiple of these when we run it, because it's recursive. So the component itself is actually recursive, which is kind of interesting. So let's get rid of on init implements control. Oh, there we go. Control value accessor, and now we're getting some nice red squigglies under our component, which is going to tell us it's not correctly implementing that interface. So we'll just use the quick fix to implement the interface for us, and this kind of gives us all the methods we'll need to properly implement that, and our red squiggly is gone, which is great. So inside of write value, and remember this is kind of similar to our input. Write value is the method that gets called whenever the value is being changed. So if we were to call SetValue, for example, this is the method that would fire. So we'll do add a little more typing here, because we know actually for the purposes of this component, this should be a family tree. Oh, that component. And we're going to add some implementation here. Register on change is, so you'll notice we pass in a function here. And what we want to do inside of our method is where this method actually gets called when the component kind of starts up. And we're going to, inside this method, we're going to want to implement a way to make sure that function that we're passing, this fn, gets called every time there's a change. So we'll mark that as we'll implement that later. Register on touch now. So this is a way to signal to the API that the form has been blurred. So it's been being interacted with, and now it's no longer being interacted with. Let's actually skip over that one. So we'll leave it as an empty implementation, because we don't really care about that so much for this demonstration. And set disabled state is a way to control whether so on a form control object, you could call enable or disable methods to enable or disable the form. And this method here is what manages that. I'm actually just going to remove it right now. You can see it is optional, and we're not going to worry about enabling and disabling for this demonstration. So here we have the control value accessor properly implemented, and we're going to want to manage the way that this component manages its state. And usually, there's some exceptions to this, but oftentimes I find that the best way of managing that state is just to have a form group inside of the component itself. So let me pull up my notes here. So we're just going to have a form property inside of our component, and this is going to be a form group. And then we are going to want to use this later. We're going to implement the onDestroy lifecycle hook, which will give us nice red squigglies there. We'll just use this onDestroy. And we're going to set up a subject right now. And this is to prevent some nasty memory leaks or subscription leaks in some reactive stuff we'll be doing. But we're going to make this new subject called destroying. And so we'll create the subject as soon as the component gets started up, and we'll want to call next on this subject when we start destroying. And this is so that we can listen to some changes, some value changes on the form, while knowing to only listen to them until this component is done. And that way we'll clean up any of our subscription leaks. So that's set up there. Let's go and implement our write value. So we'll remove that comment. And we're going to say if this form exists, we're going to, let's just put a comment in here, update the form group. However, if it doesn't exist yet, so this is on the first write, you can think of it that way. This form equals create family tree group. So this is that factory function that we had seen before. So we take that, we toss in the family tree, and now we have a form. So let's see, let's go over to our template real quick. So we see family tree works. Let's throw in here inside of a little pre. We'll just do what we did in the last example. We did this. We'll take the forms value. We'll pipe it to JSON. Let's see if that works. I don't think it will yet because, yeah, we're not seeing anything there yet. It's not working yet because inside of where we're consuming this, we haven't instantiated it yet. So let's go back to the app, our applications folder here, and we'll open up the app component. And right here where we have control equals new form control, we're actually going to call create family tree control. And it's not giving me that. Let's try that here. Port create family tree control from /family tree /utils. We're just going to grab the Simpsons family here real quick. And we'll drop them in here for now. I think this will get us to where we're working. So
Nice.
this is nice-ish. Let me go over here. I think the issue is right now this is being bound to the app. Right. So let's get rid of this for now. And since we are now implementing the control value accessor, we'll just use the form control directive here, and we'll pass that into the control. And now I believe, yes, we can see. So we've removed the text input. We now have our family tree component. And because we are just using the control value accessor here and passing in that object, we can now see that it's kind of that control is taking that object, wrapping it up, sending it into the control value accessor component. And that component is now writing it into the inner form group, which is how this all happens. I'm afraid I don't think we're going to be able to get to the end of this, unfortunately, Bonnie. But I think this might be a good introduction to getting people to think how they could maybe think about using some of these form controls.
Well, it's my fault because I'm the one who started late, so don't worry at all. Just get it through as much as you can, and then they can tune into the course to learn everything.
Wow, it's like a perfect segue right there.
Yeah.
So it looks like the real power is in those two functions, the write change, and I think what the other one was. But you can hook into the values that get updated at different times and do complicated things in there.
Right. So if we just look at our code here, let me see what happened to that window. If we look at our code, especially where this gets consumed, so I think that a lot of the power is we now have this black box that is our kind of family tree directory here. We have sort of everything packaged up, and we're exposing a factory function from the utils file and the component. And in consuming it, this turns into one line of code inside of our component class, and then inside of our template, it's 3 lines here, but it's very simple for how you can interact with that. And if we had time to fully set that up and see all of it interacting and seeing changes happen and react inside of the component, this child component itself. I think that's actually really cool. It's really, really clean. We're not that far away from having this completely implemented. But
what's stopping you from going on then?
Oh, I have to jump off in
right.
3 minutes here. I'm not, so I have a hard stop, so I'm not going to be able to get all the way through.
Could you quickly go over the component that you were turning into control value accessor then for us?
Sure.
Just finally, just as a finishing point. So
Sure.
Basically, you implement the control value accessor value. You implement the functions that it requires, which doesn't seem too complicated. Absolutely
no,
it's
it's very intimidating, I think, when you look at the docs at first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once you understand what's happening here, I really don't think it's all that different from an input and an output, where write value is kind of operating as that input and register on change. So what we do here, just maybe we can get this part in. So if we took our form and we listen to the value changes.
Yeah, which is an observable, of course. So you're going to probably pipe that to your private destroying.
Right. And so I think we'd probably want to do start with here.
Yeah, makes sense.
Apologize. We'll just ignore the inputs for now.
That's fine. Yeah. You're basically telling RSGS you're going to give it a default value on start. Yeah.
Right. And we're going to tell it to only take until
the destroy is called.
Destroying, right. And then we are going to say tap to call the function. So this is kind of shorthand for saying the passing in the function just like this it's the same as
exactly. It's just calling that callback function and returning it. Yeah.
Right. So we can just kind of shorthand that out and say tap to call the function. And now we since what we wanted to do in this was register this on change function to get called whenever the form changes, it's now doing that. And it's pretty simple, pretty clean to see how that's working. The other piece of this is updating the form group. And that's a little bit more interesting because the easiest way to update the form group is to just kind of immutably overwrite it and just say, kind of do the same thing as if there's no if else here. But that's going to give you some problems with the Forms API because we're now passing in a different object. Remember that binding, the one-way arrow? You've effectively dropped in a new object, and that kind of messes with that binding. So the easiest way I've found to manage that is to just kind of mutably update the form group's contents to match what's in this family tree. And probably the best way to do that is just to add another function inside of our utils file here and call that something like constant update form group. And that would take some form group that's a form group and some new family tree that you're updating it to. And this wouldn't return anything, but inside of it you would mess with the form group that we created.
Exactly. You would return, you wouldn't return it, but you would mutate the form group as you would receive it and then pass in a new value, and you will not mess with the change detection basically ruining your template.
Exactly.
I guess, yeah.
And then if we're going back here, we would just call that function here.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's the gist of everything that's going on with this. So I'm sorry we didn't get to do it all, but it's maybe for the forms course.
you honestly went over a lot of stuff in only 45 minutes, so I'm very impressed with that. Yeah. I hadn't looked at it ever before. And it makes me curious about the rest of the course, the entire course, or I might take a shortcut there, but the entire course is about how to implement this control value accessor properly and all relevant stuff around that. Or
sure, the course deals with start very slow, just going over form models. So we look at the different kind of HTML forms and how to create form controls that bind into that. So we'll go into some of the more obscure ones like colors and dates and times and stuff like that. And then we'll look at what it takes to do form groups and form arrays. And then there's a module on validity. That's a whole different topic we didn't even get into in this this little section. Yep. And then the third module is on the control value accessor, which is mainly just showing how to implement these four methods. This lesson actually comes from the next module, which is on handling complexity with form controls. So that's getting into this concept of composing larger forms from smaller ones, and the control value accessor I think makes that very, very clean. And that's what this is going at. And then following that, there's two sort of real world modules where we create a wizard form. So it's multi-step. You're going between tabs and adjusting multiple different config properties. We go through all of that and see what it takes to block the router from navigating if there's changes on it, and like prompting the user with a dialogue to say the changes still exist that haven't been saved. Are you sure what you want to continue? That kind of thing. And then the final one is a table, because I love tables. That's what I was on NG Houston last time for. And just implementing some forms to interact with that table and seeing how to use those components to do both a client side and a server side table, which is pretty cool. And there's a lot of integration with NGRX in there too, and the more advanced ones. But I think it's a good progression of a lot of the stuff you'd want to learn about if you're dealing with the forms Angular Forms package.
Bjorn, I want to piggyback on what you were saying, how it made this complex idea of control value accessor seem more approachable. And I'm supposed to be the professional heckler, but Zach does a great job in this course of taking you through the concepts in a way that you can actually learn it easily, and it makes it so that it doesn't feel daunting at all to work through these more complicated subjects.
Yeah, to at least give it a shot when just to try it out, basically. That's cool. It's a very interesting teaser for the rest of the course as well. So I'm guessing
it's really fun to learn about these things. All this stuff is here automatically, and you can use it anytime you want if you know it. And then it's like, oh, it was always there.
Yeah, it's I often call it this hidden gem.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's actually very elegant in the way it's designed. And there's some things I've seen recently. Some people talking about changes to make to the Angular Forms package later on, which I think is very interesting. I haven't looked too deeply into that, but I'm very interested to see more about that.
And I'm sure when they do, you'll come up with an update to the course, right?
Yeah. We'll see. I'm not sure what all is being updated in the package, but I'm hoping a lot of this stuff is timeless enough that we'll be able to use a lot of the same lessons. But yeah, at the very least, I'll make sure to update the dependencies to Angular 9 when it comes out.
Awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, we're sorry if you probably are late for your other meeting. It's our fault. Just tell them that we apologize and that we just wouldn't let you go.
Yeah, you can just shift blame to Bonnie, I guess. That's fine. That's what we do.
And Bjorn, because I was late and he also wouldn't let you go.
I'm sorry for the person watching, and it's our fault.
And for the people that are waiting for you right now.
Exactly.
Sorry. I still have 5 minutes, but I do need to switch laptops and all that.
I understand.
So I really appreciate Bonnie and Bjorn and Dennis and Isaac for heckling me so profusely.
We appreciate you, Zach, and tell Amanda that we appreciate her too, and all of your buddies at Narwhal. Tell everybody we said hello. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being patient with me when I was running late today. Isaac, thank you. Dennis,
I'm sorry
so
the example went over
there. And we'll see you guys next week. Y'all come back now, you hear?
Thanks, Zach, so much. To see you around.
Yep. See y'all.